So good afternoon. So I'm now here in my role as PeeringDB. Who has not yet heard of PeeringDB? At least one. So everyone else has heard about PeeringDB. So this is not the right presentation, I fear. Or where does this presentation come from? Because it's, no, okay, let's go on. So my agenda is first to talk about a little bit of technical stuff, what is behind PeeringDB, then the membership and governance, committees, sponsorship, and then more information resources. So what is PeeringDB? Every network who wants to peer has to have a certain information. Of course, you have to have information about your partners, the networks, but then that is not enough. So if you only would need this information, you simply could go to the RIRs, where you have all the information. The RIRs, so the routing registry like RIPE, ARIN, LACNIC, or APNIC, they have all the information, but that's not enough. So where does peering happen? Peering happened in certain facilities. That means in data centers. That means you also have to have the information where am I able to meet my peers. That means beside the information on the networks, I also need the information on the collocation or facilities in the term of PeeringDB. And since the early 90s, what has become more a commodity is to meet also at Internet exchange point. Although Geoff mentioned the king in death, long live the king, I could say the IXPs are dead, long live the IXPs. I think IXPs will still be around and be needed for at least, let's say, 2 years or so. 2 years in Internet means 15 years in real life. So the third thing we have in PeeringDB, these are the Internet exchange point. So the facilities is where the private peering is happening, and the Internet exchanges is where the so-called public peering is happening. So these are the main ingredients of PeeringDB. Information about the networks, information about the facilities, and information about the IXPs. This is all put together, linked to each other, so that you can find all the information you need for peering. PeeringDB itself, it's already around, I guess, since 14 years or so. It was hacked together by a really clever guy. It was Richard Steenbergen, and who saw the need that it's not enough to know about networks, but all of the components I've talked about. And he really hacked it together. I would say nowadays we would say it was quick and dirty. But although this PeeringDB and the user interface was quick and dirty, also the data structure behind it, people really liked it. They used it because this information was needed. And it took almost 12 years until last year, until we were able to have a new interface. So there were some volunteers who built the new interface, PeeringDB 2.0, which was launched last year, with a complete rewrite in Python, with a complete new interface, the database behind it, and so on and so on. And currently, as you can see from the releases, what we do also, we do bug fixes, we incorporate new features which come from the community. The current release is 2. So this is an error 2.1.0, which is 1 month old, and I guess the next few days there will be new release as well. So what have we been able to achieve within 1 year. So the number of verified users increased roughly by 70%. A clear indication that although the old database was already useful to the customers, they even liked the new database even more. We also see an increase in member organization by 30%, increase in peering networks by 40%, interconnection facilities by 20%, and also in internet exchange by 13%. So the increase by internet exchanges is less because at the same time what we did and what is quite easy to single out we had to look already at each internet exchange whether it's really an internet exchange or not. So in this year we also get rid of a lot of stale entries. We have seen it on the other slides. We have a couple of internet exchanges which came in which have 0 members, which does not really make sense, and we got rid of it. Also the pointer, the web users, it's quite high, and the volunteers are also working on support tickets. We worked on roughly 7,000 support tickets in the last year. Average tickets per day is 22, and we were able to resolve each ticket within 14 hours. I guess for an organization which is completely run by volunteers, that's not so bad. I already mentioned it before, and I really want to skip details. This is how the interface now looks like, and you see there is a lot of information you can click at, company website, traffic statistic, then of course, which is most useful, is technical information, how you are able to contact your IXP or contact your network. What I should mention is, besides the data versioning, PeeringDB 1.0 did not have data versioning. We are now able also to roll back if there was an error, and also to provide historical data. CAIDA stored information back from 2010, and time permitted, we will also incorporate this data so that perhaps next year we will almost have 10 years of history of peering. What we also introduced in PeeringDB 2.0 is now the top record is an organization. So the old database did not have this concept. There were only networks, facilities, and IXPs, and each of them stood alone. Now there is an organization, and an organization is able to hold any record, whether it is a network, IXP, or a facilities. And also we introduced a lot of more possibilities that each user is able to do self-service. So I just indicated that only 10 minutes left, so I skipped this. But what is also useful is the API. That means for automation, what customers want is to automate everything, not to do it manually, configuration, but being able to retrieve the information from the database automatically, import it or enrich it by the own information, and then build configuration from that. So this is how it now looks like. The multiple records under a single organization. This example is links. Links has all 3 types of information. They have facilities, networks, as well as exchanges. This is more how you affiliate yourself to multiple organizations, request ownership of an existing organization. We migrated the whole information from PeeringDB 1.0 to PeeringDB 2.0. If you surf around and say, hey, this is my network, and you want to request ownership, there's a button. Simply click on it. You have to fill in data, and then a support ticket will be generated. Also, what we introduced is a complete new concept of permissions. You are able to, or there is a fine-grained possibility to admit permissions to each member. So 2 types. You are a simple member, that means you are only able to read, or an admin who is able to also change and add data. This is the same. Also the visibility of your contact information. With the old database, we always had the problem that we had a lot of spam. Now you can say, okay, it's private, then it's only visible to yourself and members of your organization, to users. That means everyone who has a PeeringDB account or public. This is most useful for really contact information which should go to the outside world. I already talked about the API. You can do everything about it. The main concepts: organization, networks, IX, and facilities. If you want to learn more about it, do it over here. I skipped this. We have a status page. Look at it. We have several services which are monitored. A better server for better deployment. Now to membership in government. Before that, PeeringDB was just a group of admins or volunteers doing it. Since end of 2015, we are incorporated as a company in the US. And we also have a governance. We have so-called membered. To be a member, you have to be an organization, a company, partnership, a legal business, and you have to be engaged. That means you have to be subscribed to the government mailing list, and then you are able to vote. This is the old one. Sorry for that. I do not know where the other one went. This is the old board. We had elections in between. So Matt no longer is with PeeringDB. Instead, Bijal from EuroX is a new director. We have 2 committees. This is the admin committees, which are more or less doing all the support stuff. And then we have the product committee, which drives the features and develop features and looks for features from the community. The admin committee, information about the tickets. What you can see is the steep increase of tickets per day since we have PeeringDB 2.0, the product committee, and the PeeringDB services are for free. So if you register, if you're using it, even if you are hammering our database like hell, this doesn't cost any money. So we are completely financed by sponsorship. This is a list of possibilities how to sponsor it. 25,000 per year, which is a lot of money. It's limited to 2 sponsors, but everyone, at least even smaller companies, perhaps would be able to donate a silver sponsorship. This is a list of our generous sponsors, and we are really happy to say that PeeringDB is well financed and that we are really sound for at least 2 years meanwhile. So this is a list of more information, and I guess I should be fine in time as well, right?
Yeah, you're perfect, and thanks for it. Is about that 0 volunteers
So I
needed?
still have, there are additional slides for you, and what I will send, if you allow to me, I will send an update which you will happily distribute to the audience then. So this is the old one I gave at, you see at ENOG. I do not know, not at ENOG, at ASNOG. I do not know why or how I uploaded it. It should, of course, be an ENOG presentation.
Yeah, I said they have the page when you're looking for 1 volunteer and then 0 volunteers.
Excuse me?
They were looking for 1 volunteer and then 0 volunteers.
different committees, you see?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, here, on the product, so you don't need the product committee people right now.
So for the product committee, we are fine. We are still looking for admins, especially if you are fluent in Portuguese.
Great.
Because we have a lot of requests from Brazil.
Also, you need people who can speak Russian, perhaps, who can read the tickets and read.
If you, I guess you have seen it from the slide of Martin. Networks at Moscow Internet Exchange registered at PeeringDB was roughly 170. Alexander, how many customers do you have? 600, 700, something like that. That means 60% of the networks peering at the Moscow Internet Exchange are not registered in PeeringDB. Shame on you.
Well, okay. Yeah, please come to the mic if you want to say something.
Konstantin.
Konstantin Chumachenko from MSKX. Just a small correction. MSKX is registered on PeeringDB.
I know, but not your customers.
Yes. And here I support your claim and ask all of MSKX customers to use this wonderful tool. Thank you.
Thank you.
And even MSK Riga is registered. I put it in 5 minutes ago.
So it'll be 50-60.
Arnold, I just want to ask you, do you think for the future will it make sense to validate data, for example, with exchange point data, which we provide, for example, through JSON format, openly from us?
Yeah, this is some of the features we want to add. You already mentioned it. In the EuraX framework, what was developed is the so-called EuraX JSON format, where Internet Exchange Point are able to export their custom information. The big advantage of this is, of course, that the IXPs have the up-to-date and complete information. The PeeringDB approach is a bit different. PeeringDB says the network is a customer, and it's up to the network whether they put in the information or not. Some networks, for example, they do not want to register with PeeringDB for whatever reason. I guess most of the network, they simply do not know about it. But there are some which do not want, which is completely acceptable and legit for them. If they do not want and they do not see a need, why should they? And especially, even if they register, they do not want to be listed or affiliated to some exchange point for whatever reason as well. But what we want to achieve is to take the information from the EuraX and JSON schema and synchronize it with our data. And to be able to say, okay, the higher probability or higher correctness is in the IXP data, and if we see a mismatch, then we will inform both the customer and the IXP about it. This makes life easier for the IXPs as well as for the customer.
I have one small comment. Deliberate lack of data is much better than obsolete and wrong data.
Excuse me?
Deliberate lack of data in the database is much better than obsolete and wrong data.
Yes. But, yeah, the data has to be maintained and get aged out. So, ideally, once data has been put in, it should be maintained. Yeah. And wrong data is, but how do I know whether data is wrong or not?
You send yearly updates, like, oh, please update the data, like Erin does, for example. I mean, it may not work. Spam people like I can, you know, and turn them off if they don't confirm the data is correct. Yeah.
So, guess, Martin, you also want to discuss other things than simply PeeringDB?
Maybe sure you would take this, or you can use that mic. Okay. I mean, either way, depending on what you want.
So perhaps we could more think, so what Geoff said, the IXPs are dead, there are only the CDNs and the access networks. We do not need any longer someone in between who takes all the money. Maybe. But still, I get the IXP, the idea of an IXP, or the big benefit of an IXP is with one connection you are able to have a lot of virtual connection to everyone with one physical connection. And still in the CDN world, our largest customers, if you look at it, they are CDNs. So why? Because they do not want to have a physical connection to everyone else, you see. Yeah. But I guess maybe you are right. In 10 years' time, we will have islands of CDNs and access networks connected to it. But on the other hand, we have a lot of CDNs, we have a lot of access networks. If each access network has to connect physically, directly to a CDN, then maybe there are better solutions. Something more intelligent in between.
Sorry guys, we are almost close. I think we are actually in the negative now. Because we have the BOF and then we have the socials, so just keep that in mind. If you have any other questions from audience or any quick comments from Arnin, then
yes,
it's great.
Maybe because I discussed with some of you, if we can kick off the discussion on it, but if we don't have time, so...
You can borrow time from the moderator, from Alexander, from the next section, but I cannot just say go on because I want you to go. And I want to, but you know.
Because, for example, I discussed with some operators of CDN or content operators that for them it's really very important to have a validated data from some kind of databases, and the PeeringDB is, from my point of view, one of the most important databases. And maybe can I ask somebody from audience, how do you feel it? Maybe Niels?
Hi, Niels Bakker, Akamai Technologies. It doesn't really matter where the data comes from, but all of us are going to make mistakes in putting the data there. Akamai is present at well over 100 internet exchanges, and every now and then we realize, oh, we forgot to update the speed of a port, or we forgot to update an IP address, an extra connection, a disconnected connection, or a whole internet exchange. The same will happen for internet exchanges. Many don't have large automation behind their member list and everything, but it's like a manually updated HTML file and maybe a zone file. And creating an automated export into PeeringDB or something is more automation than many IXPs can manage. And the same goes there, that the data will still need to be validated. So I don't think you can rely here on a single party to provide the source of truth, but given that you're talking about, this is about peering networks, so it's in their best interest to be listed. My suggestion would indeed be let the networks themselves make the decision to list themselves in PeeringDB or not. And internet exchanges can then follow, for example, the URIX data format and allow exports of that on their website. URIX, I think, has a complete website where you can get it all together in one go. So you already have two data sources, one on the provider end and one on the client end.
Then we can have an IETF draft about the standardized format from the X to be imported to peering rate in 5 years, I think. Well,
And then we can talk about JSON or XML.
No, but that would be good. Not XML though. But sorry, okay.
So what I've also heard that it is also urgent need in exact information on where the facilities really are. So if you want to have private interconnects, it really matters whether the network is in this data center, in the same city, or in this data center, because 5 kilometers can make a lot of money.
Yes, and this is something we use PeeringDB extensively for. because otherwise you're just mailing around shipping addresses and nobody remembers if the city and what city is what the actual address is. It's, PeeringDB helps a lot here if people keep their information up to date again. But you really cannot rely on data centers to put the information in there. It really has to come from the operators.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. I think I'm sad to say it, but we have to have an hour for a both session, and actually I think we deserve at least a short break, and then we have buses starting at what, 19:30, I think.
So thank you.